What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? I'm gonna have to cut that one out. It's Slow here. I am back and I'm excited to be going for the first ever public book review. I've done one of these on Patreon before, but I wanted to kind of bring you guys, the public, into the loop a little bit. Didn't read a book until I graduated college. Pride myself, I was, I believe, the first English education major who ever completed college without ever reading one of the books. Don't tell my college that, because they'll probably take my degree away. But once I got out of college, I kind of realized that my educational training was pretty much over. So I kind of had this realization where I had to be like, do I want to quit growing in my pursuit of knowledge? So I started out reading a bunch of psychology books or trying to go down that route. Couldn't really get anything to hit. And finally I was like, what do I want to be known for? What do I want to be? What I came to was, I want to be a better disciple. I want to be a better follower of Jesus. And so I started reading a lot of Jonathan Edwards, Calvin. Last year I read around 42 books, and this year my goal is just to read like a book a month. So I'm slowing it down a little bit, doing music more full time, but I figured I'd keep you guys just kind of in tune with what I am reading and what I've been studying. I'm gonna go back a little bit. The first book I read this year, I finished it in 7 days, so I read much quicker than a month, but was this book called Letters to the Church. Most of you have probably heard it if you're familiar with many Christian books. It's super popular. It's written by Francis Chan. Francis Chan is an amazing speaker, amazing pastor, and I believe he's got a true calling on his life to just to minister to others. And the energy that he has on stage, you can just see that he is anointed, and I love him for that, and I love what he's been able to convey. Letters to the Church is a really interesting book because I don't think anything up until this point has really been written that I've seen that's came really mainstream, that's been written about this topic. The first chapter opens up with, if you were stranded on an island, you never heard of this preconceived notion of what Christianity was, but all you had was a Bible. You read through the Bible, you read through the book of Acts, and you came back from the island, you visited America. Would you be shocked at what you see the church is? Was the church in Acts what we see in America today? And he kind of points out the fact, man, I think that anyone who actually has read the Bible would see that we are seeing something in the westernized culture that is radically different from what they were talking about in Acts. A lot of things that we view are sacred in the church are really just traditions. We've got really caught up in certain things we do, and if you're in modernized church today, you know that there's certain things we do on Sunday mornings that you're kind of like, if you take a step back, you're like, I don't think that was ever mentioned in the Bible. After the Protestant Reformation, we put a lot of traditions in place to kind of break away from the Catholic Church, and there were some things that came out of that that are really good, but we're not rooted in that. We're rooted in what the Bible says. I think they had a closer representation of it back then, and we've just kind of, I think Sundays for the westernized church has become what flavor of coffee are you gonna have this Sunday, and what's gonna get people indoors. And he talks about that a little bit. My personal favorite thing from this book is simile metaphor of gang culture related to the church. And at first you're like, there's nothing similar to the church and gang culture, and there shouldn't be. And yeah, in many senses they're right. If you are in a church where you're killing people and doing crimes, just head to your local police station. Just let them know what you just said or what you just admitted. They'll be completely cool with it. What he talks about is like, when you look at gang culture, it's very family oriented. It's very like, it's almost like this socialistic environment where everyone is pitching in for each other. There's no one in need. Everyone's needs are accomplished because you're putting all of your stuff together and everyone's fighting for the same purpose. And what the book of Acts, when we look at those first 5 chapters, the book of Acts, we see that it says there was no one in need. No one had any need, and everyone was giving everything. They were selling their land, they were selling their houses, they were selling animals. Everything they had, they were selling and giving it to the church. We tithe 10% of what we get every Sunday. And some of us are like 10%. That's asking a lot of much. For me, that's $10. I really need you guys to sponsor me on Patreon. No, just kidding. A lot of us cannot imagine selling our houses to give to the church. Francis Chan is using this book as a reminder to bring us back to the Bible. What does the Bible actually say that church is? We've got this, we are so focused on the fact that church is a building where you have to have, the best worship. You got to have this crazy light show. You got to have that coffee bar set up every Sunday so that people feel warm and welcomed. And really, if you look at the book of Acts, nothing of that is mentioned. Obviously, we didn't have electricity back then. Coffee probably wasn't really, popping back then like it is now. But what we see is a community of people serving together for the common cause to further the gospel to the people who have never heard it. And yeah, we can look at the things we have now. Some of the things that we have in churches in America today and in a westernized culture are amazing. Like having a light show every Sunday is super, it's fun. Like it's engaging to watch. You know, we have some of the best musicians. That's an amazing thing that we have so many talented people using their gifts for God. But what about the other people sitting in the congregation? There's more than just musicians that are in a church. And as a musician myself, I have to be able to step back and be like, I love music. That's not what everything is about. There are people in that church who can serve in way more capacities than I will ever be able to. There are people in that church who are way more caring, they're way more loving. There are people that have gifts in the congregation. We're so used to setting up that it's a one person leads 500 and we kind of just, we go Sunday mornings and then we back off and that guy has to keep leading, but we're all right. Letters to the Church was a huge reminder that the church was never set up for you just to show up and live there in that pew for the next 20 years. Church was set up for you to go to learn and then go almost start your own church, start your own community of people. And it doesn't mean we need to go start setting up buildings, but Francis talks a lot about the idea of house churches. And you can do this on zero budget. Get a community of friends, get some people around you, and just start talking about the Bible, start living this out, start praying for each other. Francis talks about how when he was on staff at this church, if his pastors weren't spending an hour a day in prayer to let him know so he could replace them with a different pastor. How many of us have spent an hour in prayer this year? I personally haven't. I'm convicted of that. When I read this book, I was convicted of that because like, what could be more important than talking to God? And yet I find a million other things to do before I can do that. This book was just like a huge gut punch to me in a good way. Church should not be a breeding ground for sleepers. We should be a breeding ground for teachers, for pastors, for disciples. You know, the Great Commission is go baptize and make disciples. It's not go baptize and make people who are really good at acting like they're paying attention, but also they have Facebook pulled up, but it kind of looks like the Bible app and they're switching back and forth so you can't really see. Been there. I think we're missing a lot of the big picture, and I think what I'm so thankful that is somebody like Francis Chan is taking the time to say, what does the Bible actually say about church? What is the Bible actually saying about the things that we're doing on Sunday mornings? Another thing this book talks about is suffering. And suffering is one of those things in America, like we don't have a clue what suffering is, and for the majority of us. I don't mean that for everybody, so exclude me if that was rude. Suffering in America is very much like, I've got work in the morning and I just worked 17 hours in a row and I'm only going to get, however many hours that leaves in the day, 7 hours of sleep left for the night. We're very accustomed to we've got it pretty easy in America compared to a lot of third world countries and compared to what they were going on in Acts. I'm not sure if I got it from this book, it's been a while, but I know that one of the things Francis Chan says in some of his podcasts is what we consider to be sanctification in our lives is what the disciples in the book of Acts and the church in the book of Acts had to consider as a prerequisite. We have to remember that at this time, Nero was literally lighting Christians on fire on crosses throughout the street. He was using them as lampposts to reminder, like, hey, if you guys are going to sign up to follow Jesus, you're going to be up there next. Christians at this time, Christ followers at this time, had to be able to say, I'm willing to die for that. And as Americans, we're like, I'll get there one day. By 50, I'll be ready to die for Christ. For Christians at this time in the book of Acts, they had already, that's a prerequisite. That had to be something they were already knowing. Like, I'm signing my death warrant right here, but it's worth it because I know what Jesus did, what he died for. I believe Jesus was and says is who he is. And I admire that faith in it. And I look at the book of Acts and I thank God that somebody like Francis Chan has come along and help us realize like we are taking that for granted. We are taking the fact that we have the ability to gather in community. Francis talks about a lot of these times in the book of Acts, we're seeing these things where people are miraculously healed. We're seeing these supernatural miracles happen. And, wherever you stand on, do miracles still happen today as far as like biblical miracles? Francis points out a good topic, like if they can. And I believe that God is capable of absolutely everything. I believe in a sovereign God, and I believe that these things can happen. But if you're not seeing that, and we're not seeing that today, maybe it's because we're not living the way they were living in biblical times. We're not following the instructions the book of Acts has left us. I apologize, this setup looks kind of weird today. I am dog sitting for my parents, so I'm at their house for the next couple of days. Hopefully I'll get some YouTube videos shot. But thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to attach links to this book. You can grab it on Amazon. Always, it's cheap. Francis Chan's website is where I got mine, and but go to the source. A lot of times you can benefit the people, and I know Francis Chan used to do like the 90-10 rule where he was donating 90% of his salary. Now that he's not on church staff, I'm not sure exactly where his salary comes, but I'm always down to support people that I care about. If you're down to support people that you care about, I encourage you to go check out patreon.com. Today I'm wearing an Olympus shirt. It's an artist named John Keith. He has an album out right now called Olympus, and through their Patreon I was able to get discounted merchandise. Through my Patreon, which is patreon.com/lowmusic, you can get my entire EP is already up on Patreon. I've got hundreds of songs on there that I've released over the past few years, and I'm putting out more constantly. You get all these videos way ahead of time, and I kind of just ran on there all the time about things that are going on in my life, things that I'm praying about, things I'm struggling with, and books that I'm reading now. Look forward to getting you guys the next book review. I think the next one we're going to do, consider it Not Strange. It's by David Mathis and John Piper, I believe. Finishing that up this week, so I'm looking forward to getting another big review out of it.